Doubles and Coffee. Cartel or no cartel? Not vibes cartel, but big discussion. Is there a foreign exchange cartel? Let me break it down. You know, Douglas will always break it down for you. What is a cartel? A cartel is any arrangement of two or more groups or competitors that create a situation under collusion to increase their profits to super profits over and above what would exist in a normal competitive market situation. A simple thing. So is there an unfair advantage? Is the access to foreign exchange through collusion, through agreement, through preferential treatment, does it give some people an added advantage over others? And in Trinidad and Tobago, we exist under a constitution. The preamble of the constitution states that the resources of the nation shall be equitably shared, that everybody should have an equal opportunity to benefit from the largest, the resources or the opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, anybody who is duly elected to uphold the Constitution, as Kamla Bisesa has been with a great mandate on April 28, 2025, she will be responsible to investigate, inform, and create a fair situation so that all in Trinidad and Tobago can thrive and survive, not some. So don't get caught up too much with the word cartel, you know. Think about it. We saw some numbers coming out from Exim Bank, and clearly there are some companies and corporations close to the PNM, especially because when you also add in a political party who has control, who creates a system to so-called alleviate the problem, but then there is political influence and the results show that some benefit while others suffer, then it's worse than a cartel. It's a terrible situation of political bias, nepotism, corruption, and a situation that cannot continue. So the information has come out and will continue to come out, and all of you people understand that there are some who are haves, and then there are most of the people who are have-nots. So let me read something for you from the members of the PNM, under who the foreign exchange crisis was exacerbated to points and levels that were never before seen except in 1982 under that same PNM corrupt regime. Hear what they say. This is Colm Imber. No Forex cartel, say ex-ministers. These are the PNM ministers. Former Finance Minister Colm Imber yesterday accused United National Congress of seeking to destroy banking confidentiality in Trinidad and Tobago. Confidentiality. Let's read on. What is Colm talking about? Confidentiality is essential in banking to protect sensitive financial data from unauthorized access or misuse, to safeguard clients' privacy and safety and prevent identity theft, fraud, and kidnapping. For all that you reach, these are companies. These are not individuals. The information coming out about different corporation, pharmaceutical companies, oligopolies, monopolies. These are companies. What are they going to do? Kidnap the corporation? And call me, but that's your argument to keep confidential the distribution of scarce resources, which show that some people get preferential treatment. Colm, why you want to keep it? Why you want to keep it secret when you were the Minister of Finance who's supposed to uphold the Constitution and ensure that all businesses, all people have an equal opportunity to access foreign exchange? Then we continue now. We move from one dance to the bigger dance, not only in size, but in dotishness. Brian Manning. Brian Manning says, there isn't a Forex cartel. Our foreign exchange issue is that the demand for foreign exchange outstrips the supply. That's it. There's no cartel. Well, Brian Manning, over the last 10 years, the demand for foreign exchange has remained rather constant. The graph is like that. So, if under Kamla Bisesa 2014-2015, the graph for the supply was above that of the demand and people could get foreign exchange, quite easily, quite comfortably, without the credit card limits being cut in half by 3 times down to from 10,000 down to 2,000 US, from 50,000 US down to 5,000 US, and so on. Therefore, who affected the supply of foreign exchange? Was it the PNM? Was it by shutting down the steel plant? Was it by shutting down Petrotrin and saying that it was a net user of foreign exchange when it was a net earner, and lying to the population? Is it the poor gas negotiations in 2017 which made NGC make a loss for the first time in history and shut down plants? 10 plants in Point Lisas, moving Point Lisas from 74% occupancy down to 28%. Was it the lack of competitiveness, or the ease of doing business, the reduction in manufacturing and exports, the shutdown of tourism, the shutdown of the sea bridge? All of these were PNM policies that brought down a sharp decline in the supply curve, which carried it well below the demand. So if there is a greater demand than the supply, that is because of the PNM incompetence, the PNM policy, and the PNM pain. Now, let's continue with Brian Manning. So we've realized that PNM is the problem. Okay. Manning said he did not understand why the Prime Minister would go out of a way to villainize the country's business community. If our business community is unable to receive foreign exchange, then they will not be able to employ people, and this will create even more unemployment in the country. Well said, Brian Manning. There's one problem. Your definition of the business community is only a select few. A few financiers, major financiers, like one of them who was the chairman of the roadmap to recovery after COVID. And after COVID, the only thing that recovered is his corporation and his company, as they ate up smaller versions, creating a monopoly in pharmaceuticals and across the board in energy and so on. Christian Mute, who's wearing a nice fancy 500,000 US watch, similar to a picture that Rowley was wearing one, but he said that wasn't that type of watch. Remember that? This Christian Mute, the head of all these big companies that buy up everything, and is probably the #1 utilizer of foreign exchange, and he gets access. He is a PNM in charge of the roadmap, PNM roadmap to PNM recovery. So that is not the definition of the business community. A few major corporations who are friendly with PNM. You see, when PNM executives move from Cal, for example, they fall just into Massey. Them have a cushion because PNM does take care of PNM. All of these are definitions and tenets and principles of a cartel. You take care of your own, right? The Cosa Nostra. We keep your secrets, and so when you say that the business community is much bigger than a few, the business community is across Trinidad and Tobago. There seems to be geographic discrimination, racial discrimination, access discrimination, political discrimination, and therefore a cartel is when others have an advantage over competitors to make super profits. Therefore, a cartel exists because some can get and others cannot. So your definition, Brian Manning, of the business community, why don't you tell us how you and the business community were able to bid for $125 million to buy One Woodbrook Place entertainment area? Tell us about that. Was that in US? Was that bid done with TT dollars? So your definition needs some assistance, because Kamla Prasad Bises's definition is for the entire business community, upholding the constitution that says the resources must be made available to all. You and the PNM believe that the business community only exists to help you and your financiers, and that is not how it goes. That's why you want to keep it secret. There are many businesses that have shut down over the last 9.5 years because they could not get foreign exchange. They could not get US to pay the bills. They could not get their credit card limit up to purchase. They lost their credit days, their limits. The suppliers wanted cash on the dash and they were unable to get cash, while others were lucky to get foreign exchange when they want, how they want, from the PNM. Balize House went up. Maybe that was the methodology. You built Balize House from -4 million to 150 million in the black. And maybe you get foreign exchange. That is preferential treatment. That is a cartel. Any system that is not fair and equitable is a cartel. Manning continued. So it wasn't like there was any cartel, that companies that were actually earning foreign exchange were being given preferential treatment in receiving foreign exchange. Really? The list at Exim Bank leaves out many hundreds of companies that are exporting, that are earning US, and they cannot get access to US to pay their bills on time. They have to go on the black market and buy it at $9, $10 for one, while those in the cartel, those with preferential treatment, those who are linked to the PNM could get it at the $6.74, and therefore there is an increased cost of doing business for everybody else except the selected few. This is a cartel. Furthermore, if there's a banking sector in Trinidad and Tobago where interest rates are not competitive, where foreign exchange policy and divestment or allocation is the same, then that's a cartel, that's collusion. In a normal market system and in an economic system that is based on competition, fair practice, and free market, banks will compete. When you have the last time you've seen our banking sector say, hey, come for a loan here, we going to give you a 2.2%, whereas everybody else is at 4.5%, and then there's a war of interest rates and so on, making capital accessible to the population? Or do we see across the board in our banking sector, just by fluke, just by chance, that everybody have the kind of same rates, everybody have the kind of same fees, everybody have the kind of same principles? Also, Mr. Brian Manning, how was it, since there's no preferential treatment and no cartel, how was it the failed Nikwan plant was able to get a loan from Republic Bank of 120 million US when anybody who has a modicum of understanding of how you qualify for a loan and balance sheet and assets and payment terms will know that Nikwan, having produced not one drop of saleable product, not one drop of output that could bring revenue, would never qualify, especially after two major incidents of nearly blowing up the plant, that they could have never qualified with any sort of form or fashion. The risk was too great. How did this Nikwan company, that it was promoted by Rowley, encouraged by Smallpin, given ministerial gas by the PNM and Franklin Can, Allison due diligence Lewis, the PNM chairman of the Port Authority, who allowed Rowley and Smallpin to go to Australia and procure vessels without procurement, how this lady, the great PNM, was also on the Republic Bank board. How did Nikwan, and on the Nikwan board, how did they qualify when others could not? For $120 million US loan. Y'all want to tell us that there's no preferential treatment, there's no cartel, there's no interlocking directorships between the PNM and those in the business community who help Balize House? Then show us. Explain that one example for us. You explain that for me, and I will say, boy, there are no cartel. How did Nikwan get a loan from Republic Bank for 120 million US? And Allison Lewis, the PNM chairman of the Port Authority, was also on the Republic Bank board and Nikwan board. Who approved that loan? What processes were used? What were the assets? What was the business model? What were the revenue streams? Please tell us. Or be quiet, because the cartel will be exposed. And it's no secrecy. Secrecy is about the PNM when you're doing wrongdoing. Every businessman and businesswoman in Trinidad and Tobago deserves to be allocated their fair share of foreign exchange. You cannot punish some and increase the cost of some while others are benefiting. That is a cartel. There is a cartel, and Kamla will mash up the cartel. All cartels will not vibes under Kamla Prasad Bisesa. So cartels, fire burn you. PNM, the promoter of cartels, fire burn you. Imbot, fire burn you. Manning, fire burn you, but it go take long because you real big. You swell. Bless.